My name's Henry Morton. I'm 68 years old. And 3 weeks ago, my grandson tried to give me orders in a house he didn't even know didn't belong to his parents anymore. That morning, I was sitting in my usual spot, leather armchair by the kitchen window, black coffee in hand, old radio humming low. Dishes clattered behind me. My daughter-in-law, Hannah, was slamming cabinets again, probably because the cream was expired or the dishwasher hadn't been unloaded. Something stupid. Something loud. I didn't react. I hadn't for a while. She thought I was deaf. Trevor thought I was senile. The only one who didn't treat me like a sack of potatoes was David, my grandson. He was the reason I kept my mouth shut for as long as I did. 6 months ago, when Trevor lost his tech job and moved his circus into my home, it was just until we get back on our feet. Sounded reasonable. I said yes because I'm not a bastard. And again, David. They moved in the next day. No rent, no questions. Just two grown adults acting like they were owed something. Week 1, I noticed something strange. Hannah accidentally threw out all my medication bottles, said she was cleaning the cabinet. Week 2, my antique rifle disappeared from the wall. Trevor claimed it fell, broke, and he got rid of it. Week 3, they disconnected my landline. Use your cell phone like normal people, Hannah said. I started writing everything down in a notebook I kept under my chair cushion. Times, conversations, things that went missing, things they said when they thought I was asleep or out gardening. By week 4, I knew their plan. They were trying to make me seem unfit to live alone, not just for show, legally. I overheard Trevor on the phone in the garage. She's talking to the realtor tomorrow. Once Dad's out, the house goes on the market immediately. Out of my house. The house I built with my own damn hands when I was 30. Every brick, every floorboard, every goddamn pipe. This house was mine before Hannah even knew how to spell mortgage. But here's the part that makes it interesting. 6 months before they moved in, I'd already transferred the title to myself through a trust one created. Quietly, legally, irrevocably. Not a soul knew, except my lawyer and one other person, David. He helped me notarize the paperwork when he came over during spring break. Kid had no idea what he was helping me with. I just told him it was estate planning stuff. I never mentioned his parents. Now, back to that morning. David came into the kitchen, backpack over one shoulder, headphones around his neck, holding an energy drink. He stopped when he saw his mom throwing Tupperware at the wall. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your grandfather forgot to pay the water bill," Hannah snapped. "No, I didn't. I paid it 2 days ago online like I always do." David looked at me. "Did you forget?" I just sipped my coffee. That same afternoon, Trevor called a family meeting. At the dinner table, like we were the Brady Bunch. He cleared his throat like he was giving a TED Talk. "Dad," he began, "we've been discussing what's best for everyone moving forward. It's getting harder for you to keep up with the house." "I mowed the lawn yesterday," I interrupted. Trevor blinked. Hannah's lips thinned. "What Trevor's trying to say," she jumped in, "is that you deserve comfort and care. We found this amazing assisted living place just 20 minutes away. They've got meals, nurses, games. Clowns too?" I asked. "Magicians." Trevor's jaw twitched. David looked between us. He hadn't been told. I could see it on his face. "This is happening next week," Hannah continued. "We've already reserved the room." "Have you?" I said, slowly. I stood up. My knee cracked, but I didn't let them see me wince. "Well, that's mighty generous of you. Spending all that money." She smiled. "Oh, actually, the deposit came from the equity line." I paused. "What equity line?" Silence. Trevor coughed. "The house. We use the house. It's tied up now, so we can't refinance. That's why the realtor's coming Monday." David finally spoke. "Wait, what?" I walked past them into the den, opened the locked filing cabinet they never noticed under my desk, and pulled out a red folder. Inside, the new deed showing ownership under the Morton Family Trust, controlled by me. A cease and desist letter from my lawyer, prepared in advance. And a printed copy of every expense Trevor and Hannah had run up using my address, including the equity application they forged with my signature. I dropped the folder on the table. "Trevor," I said calmly, "you no longer have legal access to this property. As of March 17th, This house belongs to the Morton Family Trust. You're not trustees. You're not beneficiaries. You're just squatters who happen to be my blood." Hannah's face drained of color. Trevor laughed nervously. "Dad, come on, don't make this ugly." I turned to David. "Son, you remember when you helped me with some papers last March? That was this. You notarized the transfer deed. You're the backup trustee, by the way." David froze. "Wait, I am." I nodded. "If something happens to me, you take over the house. Not your parents." The silence was surgical. Then Hannah screeched, "You tricked us." I shrugged. "No, you assumed. You treated me like a ghost in my own home. Now you're the ones without a roof." Trevor exploded. "You can't do this." "We'll fight it." "You already signed away your rights," I said, pointing to the forged loan application. "And that's a felony, by the way." They stormed off to their room, slamming doors, yelling. That was 3 weeks ago. The eviction process started last Tuesday. My lawyer said we're right on schedule. The sheriff's notice goes up next Monday. As for David, he's still living here, still sleeping on the couch. I offered him the guest room, but he said he doesn't mind. Said it's cozy. He still doesn't know everything. Not yet. But soon he'll learn that I didn't just protect my house. I protected his future. Because there's more. Much more. And if you think this is the end of the story, you're dead wrong. Monday morning came fast. At 9:14 a.m., the sheriff's deputy knocked on the door. Tall guy. Looked like he was born tired of people's crap. I let him in. Trevor and Hannah were still in their pajamas. They just started pouring cereal when he handed them the formal notice of eviction. Gave them 72 hours to vacate the property. Trevor read it once. Blinked. Read it again. This has to be a mistake, he mumbled. No mistake, the deputy said. Verified and recorded. This property's under a family trust. You're not the owner, you're not on the lease, and you've been given a reasonable deadline to leave. Hannah exploded. This is elder abuse, she shouted. He's confused. He doesn't know what he's doing. My husband's father is being manipulated by someone. Ma'am, the deputy interrupted. That man built this house and owns it legally. If you're still here on Thursday morning, we'll be back with movers. They were speechless. David walked in just as the deputy left. Backpack on, keys in hand, heading to class. What's going on? He asked. Ask your grandfather. Trevor snapped, slamming the eviction notice on the table. He decided to treat us like criminals. I poured myself coffee. Black. No sugar. I didn't decide anything, I said. The paperwork's been in place since March. You played stupid games, Trevor. Now you get stupid prizes. David stood there in silence. He didn't say anything as Trevor and Hannah started packing. He didn't help them, either. That afternoon, Hannah came to me with fake tears. Henry, she said, can we just talk for a second? Woman to man, parent to parent. I'll let her talk. I know we've had tension, she began, but I've always respected you. Always. This situation, it's gotten out of hand. We just need time. A few months. Just until Trevor gets work again. We'll pay rent, I swear. I looked her straight in the eyes. You used my name to apply for a line of credit. Forge my signature. That's not tension. That's fraud. She stammered. We didn't mean to. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't expect me to fight back. She left the room without another word. The next 2 days were awkward. They barely spoke. Slammed doors. Loud phone calls. Whispering in corners like kids caught cheating on a test. But by Thursday morning, they were gone. U-Haul in the driveway at 6:30 a.m., engine running, Trevor looking like a man who just swallowed a wasp nest. Hannah didn't even say goodbye. David came home that night to a quiet house. Just me, the TV, and the smell of meatloaf in the oven. He dropped his bag and looked around. They really left. Yup. Where'd they go? No idea. Silence. He sat down across from me, picked up his fork, and said something that made me pause. You didn't do this for yourself, did you? I raised an eyebrow. You did this to protect me. I didn't answer right away. Just kept chewing. Then I said, let's just say I've seen too many good people get robbed blind by the people they raised. He nodded. Then he added something that surprised me. They were trying to sell the house. I found messages on Mom's tablet. Real estate agent texts. Listings. Photos of the living room while you were out. I knew. but hearing him say it hit differently. I didn't think you noticed, I said. I noticed everything, he replied. He was quiet for a second, then said, I don't want their money or this house, but I'm glad it's safe with you. That night, after he went to bed, I sat alone in the den. I opened the red folder again, the trust documents, the property deed, the notarized statements, and the letter, the one I hadn't shown him yet, the one that made him not just my grandson, but my successor. See, 6 months ago, I didn't just put the house into a trust. I named David as the sole heir and future trustee. If anything happens to me, heart attack, stroke, bus on the highway, David gets everything. The house, the savings, the land out in Yakima. It's all his. But there's a condition. One he doesn't know yet. He has to stay away from his parents for 1 full year. Not because I want revenge, because I want to give him room to grow without their poison in his ears. He doesn't know that part. Not yet. But he will. Very soon. Because there's more coming. And the next knock on the door won't be from a sheriff. It'll be from someone else entirely. Saturday morning. I was cleaning the gutters out front when I saw a taxi pull up. A young woman stepped out. Maybe mid-20s. Thin, pale, nervous. One arm holding a diaper bag. The other, a toddler. Maybe 2 years old. Curly hair. Big eyes. Looked too serious for a baby. She walked up the path slowly, like she wasn't sure she should be here. I wiped my hands on a towel and met her halfway. You Henry Morton? She asked. That's me. I'm looking for Trevor, your son. I didn't answer. She shifted the baby to her other hip. The kid didn't cry, just stared at me like he'd seen something familiar. I'm sorry to show up like this, she said, but he's not answering his phone, or emails, or anything, and it's been 3 months. I don't know where else to go. 3 months? I took a deep breath. What's your name, miss? Alyssa. And this is Trevor's. She nodded slowly. I didn't know he had another family, I said. She looked down, embarrassed. He said he was going to leave his wife. Said he just needed time to sort things out. Then one day, he just disappeared. No warning. No money. Nothing. Typical. I didn't ask for proof. The look in her eyes told me everything I needed. Come in, I said. You've had a long trip. I made her tea while David helped her settle the baby in the living room. The kid liked David immediately. Even smiled when he made a dinosaur noise. Alyssa told us everything. She met Trevor during a marketing event in Portland. He said he was single, said he lived alone, said he traveled a lot for work. That's why he couldn't always answer. When she got pregnant, he didn't flinch. Told her he wanted a fresh start. Promised they'd move in together, that he'd be there for the baby. For 2 years, he visited off and on. Gave her just enough to keep her hoping. And then, radio silence. No explanation. No goodbye. Gone. I found his old address online, she said. It brought me here. I nodded. He and his wife were evicted last week. Her eyes widened. So they were still together? Not anymore. She exhaled hard, like someone had kicked the wind out of her. David was quiet the whole time. Just sat there, holding the baby, rocking slowly. That evening, after Alyssa and the child were asleep in the guest room, David came into the kitchen. She seems real, he said. She is. And the kid, also real. He nodded. Then he asked something I didn't expect. Why didn't you tell me my dad was like this? I took a moment. Because I wanted you to figure it out for yourself. He looked away. I always had a feeling, he muttered. He never came to my games. Never asked about school. Always forgot my birthday. But I still wanted to believe he was just busy. I didn't reply. Some truths need silence more than answers. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Told him to prepare a new affidavit. One that would protect Alyssa and her son. Because if Trevor thought he could create a second family and walk away like nothing happened, he was wrong. Dead wrong. And if Hannah knew, if she had any idea her husband had a kid with another woman while they were living under my roof, then this wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. And I was done playing defense. Monday, 7:45 a.m. I was in my lawyer's office with a hot coffee and a file labeled Morton Second Family. Inside, printouts of Alyssa's text history with Trevor, dates, locations, wire transfers, and a birth certificate with Trevor's name clearly listed under father. Graham, my attorney, flipped through the folder like he was skimming a grocery receipt. This is enough, he said. You want to press charges? Not yet. Then what do you want? I looked him in the eye. I want leverage. He smirked. Old school. I like it. We drafted a formal declaration of paternity and a petition for child support. We also wrote up a cease and desist letter addressed to both Trevor and Hannah, warning them against further fraudulent activity under the Morton family name or else. I didn't send them yet. First, I needed one more thing. That afternoon, I met with an old friend from the county clerk's office, retired now, but still sharp. Can you give me access to Trevor's financials? I asked. Real ones, not the cleaned up garbage he shows his wife. She gave me a look. Is this about protecting your assets? No, I said. It's about exposing his lies. By Wednesday morning, I had it. Trevor had been pulling money out of my accounts. Small amounts, spread out over time. $200 here, $300 there. Enough to fly under the radar. But over the last year and a half, more than $12,000. He'd used my old checkbook, the one I thought I lost last winter. He'd forged the signature. Mine. That was it. That was the final nail. I went home, sat in my chair, and waited. At 4:18 p.m., the phone rang. Blocked number. I picked up. You think you're clever? Trevor's voice, sharp, breathless. You think you could just throw us out and not deal with the consequences? I think you should stop talking. Do you know what you've done to your own son? To your grandson? My grandson is doing just fine. You, on the other hand. He cut me off. You think you're going to win? You're an old man, Dad. You don't even know how the system works anymore. I let that sit in the air for a second. Then I said calmly, son, I built the system. You're just drowning in it. Click. Next morning, I called Hannah. She answered after the second ring. She sounded tired. Flat. What do you want? I want to give you a chance, I said. To do what? To come clean. Before the court forces you to. Silence. Then she asked, almost whispering, how much do you know? Enough to destroy him, I said. And you? Another silence. Then what do you want? Meet me. Alone. Tomorrow morning. Community Park. 9 a.m. Bring nothing. Say nothing to Trevor. She agreed. I hung up. David came into the kitchen 5 minutes later. Who was that? Your mother. He raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? I smiled. It's about to be. Thursday. 9 a.m. I was already at the park, sitting on the same bench I used to take David to when he was a toddler. Back then, he climbed the jungle gym like he was conquering a mountain. Now, I was waiting to dismantle one of his parents. Hannah arrived at 9:07. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Hoodie and jeans. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was carrying a large manila envelope. She sat down 2 spaces away, didn't look at me. You said come alone. I did. I know, I said. I tapped my chest. I also said bring nothing. She stared at the envelope in her hands. It's not a threat. It's insurance. Against what? She handed it to me. I didn't open it yet. I want out, she said. Out of this whole mess. Out of the lies. Out of Trevor's shadow. I didn't know about Alyssa. Not really. I suspected things. But I never imagined he had a kid. I stayed quiet. He used me, Henry. Just like he used you. I thought we were building a life, but really I was just a cover. His legal front. Every time he got into trouble, it was my name on the paperwork, my signature on the lease, my voice answering calls from the bank. You let him rob me blind. She looked down. I thought the money was borrowed. I believed he'd pay it back. I was stupid. No, I said. You were complicit. Finally, I opened the envelope. Inside, a printed list of Trevor's email accounts, fake names, burner phones. Screenshots of wire transfers from my account to a crypto wallet under Trevor's alias. A signed statement from Hannah herself, explaining how Trevor forged my checks and moved money without my knowledge. It was everything I needed. All of it. You're testifying, I said. She flinched. What? You're going to walk into court, raise your right hand, and confirm every single word in this document. She hesitated. And in return, I don't file a joint criminal complaint against you. And I don't tell David what you tried to pull with the assisted living scam. She sighed, then said, you win. I'm not here to win. I'm here to end this. She stood up to leave, but I stopped her. One question. She turned. Was there ever a moment, I asked, where you actually saw me as family? Not a burden, not a walking wallet, just family. She blinked, looked away, maybe once. Years ago. That's what I thought, I said. She walked off. I waited 5 minutes, then pressed stop on the recorder in my jacket pocket. Yes, I recorded everything. No, I didn't feel guilty. By the time I got back home, Graham already had the audio file transcribed and uploaded. Henry, he said, you just bought yourself an ironclad case. And I wasn't done. Because at 6:41 that evening, Trevor texted David for the first time in over a week. Son, don't believe anything your grandfather says. He's trying to turn you against us. David showed me the message. I laughed. Then I showed him the envelope. Your mom gave me this today. I said, you want to see what's really going on? He read every page, then sat back in silence. Finally, he said, he's not my father anymore. Friday, 10:03 a.m. The phone rang just as I was pouring tea. Mr. Morton, the voice said. Sharp, formal. Detective Alvarez, Financial Crimes Unit. We've reviewed the materials your attorney submitted. We're moving forward with charges. Which ones? I asked. Wire fraud, forgery, identity theft, embezzlement, and potentially bigamy. That last one made me pause. Bigamy. Looks like your son filed a common-law domestic partnership with a woman named Alyssa Carter while still legally married. I set the teapot down. The steam rising from the spout wasn't half as hot as what I felt inside. Do you want to testify? The detective asked. I absolutely do. An hour later, I sat at the kitchen table across from David. He was reading something on his laptop. I didn't say a word until he closed it. Internship offer, he said. Legal department. Sacramento. Summer term. I raised an eyebrow. You applied? Yeah, a few months ago. Didn't think I'd get it. And I declined it. Why would you do that? He looked me dead in the eyes. Because you need someone here. I didn't know what to say. It's been a long time since I was caught off guard. You don't owe me anything, David. I know, he said, but maybe I owe it to myself to see this through. I want to help finish what you started. That night, we drove out to the old storage unit where Trevor kept his business files. I still had access. The lease was in my name. He never bothered to change it. We dug through crates of junk, tools, old receipts, until we found a black duffel bag taped shut. Inside, 3 fake passports with different names, a dozen prepaid phones, a spiral notebook packed with diagrams, transfers, crypto, wallet info, fake investor names, everything. Trevor hadn't just scammed me. He'd built a full network of fraud. When we got home, David went straight to his room. An hour later, he came out holding the red folder, the one with the trust papers. Grandpa, he said, I've read everything in here. Okay, I know I'm a successor trustee. You are. Then I want to change something. Which part? The clause about staying away from my parents for a year. I frowned. Why? He didn't flinch. Because I don't want distance. I want justice. I want to testify. I sat back in my chair. You're sure about this? Yes. This might ruin them completely. They ruined themselves. I nodded slowly. I'll have the clause amended first thing tomorrow. He turned to go, but stopped in the hallway. I know what you did for me, he said. With the trust. With the house. With everything. You don't need to say anything. I do, he said. You saved me from turning into him. Then he disappeared into the dark hallway. And I sat there for a long time, holding that red folder. For the first time in years, I didn't feel old. I felt ready, because the next step wasn't about saving the house. It was about cleaning up the family name before it got buried with me. Monday, 8:55 a.m. Courthouse. Room 3. David stood by the witness door in an oversized blazer from our neighbor. It didn't quite fit, but he looked more like a man than a kid. Focused. Stone-faced. Nothing like the boy I raised after his father bailed. I sat in the 3rd row behind the prosecutor. 2 rows back, Alyssa clutched a toddler on her lap. She looked like a statue, rigid, silent. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she didn't respond. Judge entered at 9:02. The case was called State of California versus Trevor James Morton. 5 felony charges. Guide froth, forgery, identity theft, tax evasion, criminal impersonation. Each one carried years of prison time, and all of them could be proven, especially with what we found in that duffel bag. They called David to the stand at 9:26. He walked forward without flinching, didn't look at his father, didn't look at me. just raised his hand and faced the judge. State your name, for the record. David Henry Morton. Relation to the defendant? He's my father. Do you understand what it means to testify under oath? Edo. And then he spoke. Calm, controlled, almost surgical in how he laid it out. How Trevor forged my signature on real estate documents. How he convinced David to stay quiet by promising money for college. How Alyssa played along, pretending it was just a temporary arrangement. But the jury wasn't watching Alyssa. They were watching Trevor. And Trevor looked like a man caught naked in a snowstorm. Pale, shaking, sweating bullets. I knew that look. He was calculating, figuring if he could flip this, if he could twist it into some narrative where he was the victim. But he couldn't, because as David spoke, I slipped the final envelope to the bailiff. Inside, a notarized letter from a former business partner, copies of offshore wire transfers, a thumb drive containing voice recordings. One of the files, Trevor discussing how to manipulate the old man into signing over the trust. The judge paused the hearing, requested a 10-minute recess, told the prosecution to review the new evidence. David stepped down from the stand and sat beside me. He didn't say anything. Didn't have to. He'd done his part. I had one more play. The courthouse cafeteria was nearly empty. Alyssa sat at a table alone, picking at a muffin. I sat down across from her. I know who you really are, I said. She didn't answer. You used to be Alyssa Carter. Until 2016, when you got arrested for credit card fraud in Nevada. Name change. New state. New story. She looked up, eyes narrow. Is that a threat? No, I said. It's a deal. She leaned forward. I don't deal with bitter old men. I dropped a photo on the table. It was her and Trevor in front of a house in Phoenix, one I now knew had been sold under a fake LLC to a fake buyer. The LLC? Registered under her alias. Your name's on at least 3 bank wires tied to shell companies. You don't want to be holding that bag when this thing blows. She bit her lip, looked away. What do you want? Testify. Tell the court Trevor planned everything. You were a pawn, victim of manipulation. Even if that's not true, you and I both know it is. She stared at the photo for a long time, then nodded once. When do I talk? Tomorrow morning. Back at home, David was sitting in the living room, laptop open. Did she crack? He asked. I nodded. He smiled. Good, he said, because I think I just found something else. What now? He turned the screen toward me. A list of company names. Shell corporations. All with addresses tied to old warehouses, none in use. And next to each name, another signature. Mine. Forged, Tuesday, 6:12 a.m. David was still asleep when I left. I didn't wake him. Didn't leave a note. Just took the printout from his laptop, grabbed the keys, and headed south. One of the addresses listed under the forged LLCs was a warehouse on Old Barrett Road. Abandoned, supposedly. But the lease was renewed 3 months ago in my name. I didn't remember signing anything. And after the last few weeks, I didn't doubt Trevor's willingness to forge again. The closer I got, the less it looked like a dead zone. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel. New locks on the gate. Security camera on a pole, blinking. I parked 2 blocks down and walked in through a hole in the chain-link fence. My left knee didn't like the crouching, but it wasn't the first time I ignored paying to get answers. Inside, it wasn't empty. There were metal shelves full of boxes. Plastic containers stacked in the corner. A folding table with 2 laptops and a portable scanner. This was an active site. I heard movement, far back behind a plastic tarp. I reached for my phone, but it buzzed before I could dial. David. Grandpa, where are you? Call me. Now. The prosecutor just emailed. Trevor posted bail. My stomach turned. He was out. And if he knew what Alyssa and David testified, he'd be desperate. I backed up slowly, phone still in my hand. But I wasn't fast enough. From behind the tarp. Trevor. Wearing all black. Eyes red. Face hollow like he hadn't slept in days. You shouldn't be here, he said. You made this my problem, I replied. The moment you signed my name to a lie. He glanced down at the table. The laptop screen was open, displaying a spreadsheet full of names and numbers. How much did you steal? I asked. He didn't answer. How much was enough, Trevor? After the house? After the trust? After you bled your son for tuition money you never paid? He didn't move, but his eyes twitched. You always loved playing victim, he said, like the world owed you something. I took a step forward. No, I love playing father, until you gave me a reason to stop. He lunged, not like a fighter, like a cornered animal. We crashed into the metal shelf. Boxes tumbled. Something cracked in my shoulder, sharp, fast. I bit down and pushed with my good arm. He lost his footing and hit the floor hard. I stumbled back, reaching for the phone. He grabbed my ankle and yanked. I dropped to one knee, but I wasn't going down again. Not for him. Not this time. Stay down, old man, he hissed. I didn't. I kicked him square in the ribs. Twice, until he let go. I made it to the exit, limping hard, and hit the emergency dial. Police. 875 Barrett Road. Active crime scene. Suspect is on site. Then I dropped the phone and ran. The officers arrived in 6 minutes. I was already on the curb, holding my shoulder. They found Trevor inside, trying to wipe the hard drives. Didn't even resist. Just looked up and muttered, "Guess the game's over." Back home, David opened the door before I knocked. "You're bleeding," he said, grabbing a towel. What happened? He hit like a coward, fought like a liar. David sat me down and iced my shoulder. "Did you get anything?" "I got enough," I said. "Police have it now. The warehouse, the records, the tech." He was quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Are we done?" I looked at him. "No," I said. "We're not done until his name's off every paper I ever signed." David nodded slowly, then walked into the other room. He came back holding a folder, one I hadn't seen before. He set it on the table. Inside, a notarized affidavit from Alyssa, her written agreement to testify, and something else, a sealed envelope addressed to me. I opened it. It was from my late wife. Handwritten, "If you ever have to choose between peace and justice, choose justice. Peace can wait. Love, Claire." The courtroom was packed. More press, more spectators, more eyes on the old man they used to ignore. But I didn't care about the crowd. I cared about the man in the defendant's chair. Trevor sat there in a wrinkled suit, wrists cuffed, mouth pressed shut like he was holding back fire or fear. Maybe both. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Morton," she said, "are you prepared to testify?" I stood. My shoulder still ached from the warehouse scuffle, but I didn't flinch. I walked to the front, past Alyssa without a glance, and took the stand. The bailiff handed me the Bible. "I do," I said before he finished the sentence. The prosecutor approached. "Mr. Morton, can you confirm you are the legal owner of the Morton residence at 218 Redwood Lane?" "I can. Title was transferred to me fully 6 months ago." "And were you aware of any attempts by the defendant to reverse or manipulate that transfer?" "I was after the fact. He forged my signature on a fake revocation document. Tried to reroute the title into an LLC he controlled." "Did you authorize any such action?" "Absolutely not." She paused. "Mr. Morton, I understand this is your son on trial. Do you wish to proceed with charges?" I looked straight at Trevor. He stared at the table. "Yes," I said. "Edo." A gasp from somewhere behind. Maybe someone from the local paper. Maybe someone who thought family loyalty outweighed justice. I didn't blink. Next came the hard questions. About the trust fund, the offshore transfers, the shell corporations Trevor set up under my name. I answered every one. Calm, clear, cold. Because that's what justice feels like when you've been burned too many times, cold and clean. Then the defense had its turn. Trevor's lawyer stood, an oily man with slick hair and forced charm. "Mr. Morton," he said, "are you aware your son was under financial stress due to poor investments?" "I'm aware he made bad choices," I replied, "and lied to cover them. Isn't it possible he acted out of desperation, not malice?" "No," I said. "He acted out of greed, and when that wasn't enough, he acted out of entitlement." The lawyer's smile thinned. "Did you ever threaten your son?" "I threatened to cut him off. I should have done it sooner." The judge raised an eyebrow. I looked her dead in the eye. No man gets to set fire to his family and then ask why they don't feel warm. Later that afternoon, Alyssa took the stand. She confirmed everything. That Trevor had masterminded the fraud. That she'd been roped in under false promises and threats. That David had no idea until it was too late. Trevor didn't even look at her. When the prosecution rested, the judge dismissed the jury for the day. We'd reconvene tomorrow for closing statements. I stood outside the courthouse with David. Do you think it's enough? He asked. I nodded. Maybe not to fix everything, I said, but enough to end his grip on us. He looked tired, older. He hadn't even turned 20 yet, but I saw 10 years in his face this week alone. You did good, I said. He smiled faintly. Then, are you going to tell him goodbye? After all this? I thought about it, then shook my head. No, some people don't get goodbyes. They just get consequences. That night, I went home and lit the fireplace, poured one glass of bourbon, sat in the chair Claire used to love. I opened her old recipe book and tucked her letter between the pages, right under her apple pie instructions. She'd have liked that. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt empty. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the ceiling fan seemed to hold its breath. David sat beside me, fingers locked, staring at the jury box like it held the last light in the world. The foreman stood, a thin woman, maybe in her 50s, with a voice like gravel and certainty. In the case of fraud, forgery, and criminal impersonation, on all counts, we find the defendant, Trevor Morton, guilty. A murmur swept through the room. Someone behind me whispered, "Finally." But I didn't smile. Not yet. The judge lifted her gavel. Sentencing hearing will take place 2 weeks from today. Bail is revoked. The defendant is remanded into custody. The gavel dropped. And just like that, it was over. Except it wasn't. Not for me. Not yet. Trevor didn't turn a look at me as the bailiffs cuffed him again. Didn't say a word. Just stared straight ahead like a man who still didn't understand why the world stopped revolving around him. I didn't speak either. What could I say? He was no longer my problem. He was the court's now. David and I walked out into the cool October air. There were reporters, but I said nothing. David did all the talking, smart, brief, steady. He's more of a man than I ever expected Trevor to be. We got back home late. The sun had already dipped behind the trees. David went to his room. I stayed in the kitchen, turning over a package Alyssa had handed me outside the courtroom. It's from Claire, she'd said. That stopped me cold. Claire had been gone 3 years. Her cancer had eaten quietly. She passed before I knew just how deep Trevor had sunk. But apparently, she had known more than she let on. The envelope was thick, handwritten, addressed to me in her soft, careful script. I opened it slowly. Inside, 2 pages folded once. Henry, if you're reading this, it means Trevor finally went too far. I am sorry. I should have said more while I was alive. But a mother's love is complicated. I kept hoping he'd change. I now know he won't. I've watched the way he looks at you. Not with respect, but calculation. I've seen him borrow money and lie about it. I've heard him yell at David when he thought no one was listening. And I've seen the look in your eyes when you pretend not to notice. Stop pretending. The house is yours. The land, too. Do not let him talk you into guilt. You've carried enough. I left the second letter for David. If things ever get bad, give it to him. Let him know he was always the bright light in this family, and that I believed in him, even when his father didn't. Henry, don't grow bitter. Justice is not revenge, and peace is still waiting for you. All my love, Claire. I sat there in the kitchen, alone with the letter. The air felt still, heavy but clean. Then I stood up, walked down the hall, and knocked gently on David's door. He opened it, saw the envelope in my hand. This is yours, I said, from your grandmother. He didn't say anything, just took it and held it like it was made of glass. You okay? I asked. I will be, he said quietly. 2 weeks later. Sentencing. 5 years minimum. Possibility of parole in 3 if Trevor behaves. I didn't attend. Didn't need to. I had a garden to finish. The back porch needed paint. The fence was sagging. And Claire's apple tree had finally bloomed again. That evening, David joined me outside. Grandpa, he said, I've been thinking. Dangerous habit, I replied, smiling. He laughed. I want to stay here a while. Maybe longer. Fix things. Help you. I looked at him, really looked. He was becoming something no one had planned for. A good man born from bad soil. You're welcome, I said. For as long as you want. We sat in silence, the way families should, without expectation or performance. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe this house was finally a home again.